Admiral Han stood at the viewing window of the eternal dawn, his golden-trimmed uniform reflecting the distant starlight. The massive warship, spanning 3 kilometers in length, drifted silently through the void of space. Before him, a holographic display illuminated the bridge with the soft blue glow of a planet that would soon change the course of galactic history. Earth, such a simple name for such an unremarkable world. The third planet of an average yellow star, lost in the outer rim of the galaxy. Han's silver-streaked hair and weathered face spoke of centuries spent exploring the cosmos, yet something about this world made him uneasy. "High Commander," called out Science Officer Lee from her station. Her slender fingers danced across the control panel as streams of data flowed through the ship's quantum processors. "I've completed the preliminary scans of the planet." Han turned from the window, his boots clicking against the polished floor. "Report your findings, Officer Lee." "The civilization appears to be in early development stages," she continued, adjusting her collar. "Their space technology is primitive, limited to their immediate orbital region. They've established a small station around their planet and placed a few basic satellites around their moon." The massive viewing screens surrounding the bridge displayed images of Earth's cities, vehicles, and orbital installations. Han studied them with practiced eyes, noting the inefficient designs and obvious technological limitations. "Their energy usage suggests they haven't even mastered fusion technology," Lee added. "They rely heavily on burning fossil fuels and basic fission reactors." Captain Park, who had been silently observing from his command chair, leaned forward. "Hardly a threat to the Empire, then. They seem harmless enough, barely able to reach their own moon." His voice carried the familiar tone of imperial superiority that Han had heard countless times before. "What of their military capabilities?" Han asked, his gaze fixed on images of Earth's armies and naval forces. Lee's expression changed subtly as she pulled up new data. "This is where things become interesting, sir. While their weapons are primitive by our standards, their combat records show something remarkable." She paused, double-checking her findings. "The rate at which they adapt and improve their warfare techniques is unlike anything in our database." Han moved closer to examine the combat footage playing across the screens. He watched as Earth's military forces demonstrated an uncanny ability to improvise and overcome challenges. "Explain." "In just the past century of their time, they've progressed from basic projectile weapons to guided missiles, from primitive aircraft to stealth bombers. Their tactical innovations are concerning." Lee highlighted several examples. "They've mastered guerrilla warfare, asymmetric combat, and psychological operations. They've developed weapons that specifically target electronics, a potential threat even to our systems." Captain Park waved his hand dismissively. "Every species develops weapons, Lee. It's hardly worth noting." "With respect, Captain," Lee countered, "most species follow predictable patterns of military development. These humans, they're different. They don't just improve their technology. They fundamentally change how they think about warfare with each generation." Han felt a memory stirring from his academy days, a lecture about dangerous worlds marked by the ancient precursor civilizations, warnings written in texts so old they'd nearly been forgotten. He pushed the thought aside. The Empire had encountered thousands of species across the galaxy. They'd peacefully incorporated some and subjugated others. What possible threat could one more primitive civilization pose? "Sir," Park spoke up again, "I recommend we initiate standard contact protocols. A show of force, followed by diplomatic overtures. The usual approach." Han raised his hand, silencing further discussion. He studied the holographic image of Earth rotating slowly before him. Such a fragile-looking world, wrapped in its thin atmosphere and vast oceans. Yet something about it set off warning bells in his mind. "Forward all data to Imperial Command," he ordered finally. "Request permission to establish first contact." But he turned to face his officers, his expression grave, double our normal security protocols. "Something about these humans demands caution. As the crew moved to carry out his orders, Han returned to the viewing window. The real Earth was now visible as a pale blue dot in the distance. He couldn't shake the feeling that they were about to wake something that had been better left sleeping. Unknown to Han, at that very moment, several of Earth's most advanced detection systems had already noted anomalies in their deep space scans. In underground bunkers and secret facilities across the planet, humans were doing what they did best, preparing for the unexpected, adapting to new challenges, and getting ready to surprise anyone who might underestimate them. The game was about to begin, and the Empire had no idea they were playing against masters of changing the rules. Deep within the massive Grand Archive of the Empire, researcher Kim sat alone in the dimly lit research chamber. The soft hum of ancient data terminals filled the air as her fingers moved across the glowing interface, tracing lines of text that hadn't been viewed by living eyes in centuries. The archive itself was a marvel of imperial engineering, a structure that spanned 20 levels underground, housing the collected knowledge of 1,000,000 worlds. But today, in the quiet hours of early morning, Kim's attention was fixed on a single mysterious entry that made her heart race. The text glowed with a faint blue light as she translated the ancient script. Her eyes widened as she read the warnings left behind by the Ancient Ones, the mysterious precursor civilization whose remnants the Empire had built itself upon. "This can't be right," she whispered to herself, quickly initiating a second scan to verify the data. The terminal cast shadows across her concerned face as she leaned closer, double-checking every symbol. The message was clear, but its implications were staggering. Kim's fingers moved swiftly as she composed an urgent message to Admiral Han. She knew the fleet was already preparing for first contact with Earth, but this information couldn't wait. The terminal chimed as she marked the message with the highest priority code available to her clearance level. "Admiral," she wrote, choosing her words carefully. "Historical records indicate the Earth sector was marked with a Level 7 warning by the Ancient Ones. Only 3 other regions in the known galaxy carry such a designation. Recommendation: maintain observation only. Reason: species designated as potentially catastrophic if provoked." She hesitated before adding, "The Ancient Ones' records suggest they encountered similar species during their reign. In all documented cases, attempting to subjugate or control these civilizations led to catastrophic consequences for the aggressor." Aboard the Eternal Dawn, Admiral Han was reviewing the final preparations for the diplomatic mission when Kim's message arrived. The warning flashed across his personal terminal with an urgent priority marker. He read it twice, then called for Captain Park. "What do you make of this?" Han asked, displaying the message on the larger screen. Park scanned the text quickly. "Superstition, sir. The Ancient Ones were powerful, yes, but they were also notoriously cautious. Their warnings about dangerous species litter the archives. We've ignored similar warnings before without consequence." Han nodded slowly, but something about this warning felt different. "The Ancient Ones built empires that lasted millions of years, Captain. They didn't survive that long by being foolish." "With respect, sir," Park countered, "our empire has grown far beyond what the Ancient Ones could have imagined. Their fears shouldn't dictate our actions." The Admiral stood at his viewing window, watching as the massive diplomatic fleet assembled. Dozens of warships moved into formation, their hulls gleaming in the starlight. The Empire had indeed grown powerful, perhaps the most powerful civilization since the Ancient Ones themselves. He thought about the humans, still confined to their single world, barely able to reach their own moon. The warning seemed almost laughable when viewed against the might of the Imperial fleet. "The diplomatic mission will proceed as planned," Han announced finally. "But send word to the Imperial Defense Fleet. I want our escort doubled. Better to be overly cautious than caught unprepared." As the orders went out, Kim sat back in her chair at the archive, staring at the ancient warnings with growing unease. There was more in the records, much more, but she needed time to decode it. Time they might not have. The terminal in front of her displayed one final line from the Ancient One's text, a line she hadn't included in her message to Han. "Beware the species that thrives on conflict, for they will turn your own strength against you." Across the void of space, Earth's most advanced sensors had already detected the growing fleet of Imperial ships. In hidden bunkers and secret facilities, humans were analyzing the data, developing new strategies, and preparing for every possible scenario. They had spent their entire history preparing for this moment, though they hadn't known it. The Empire was about to learn why the Ancient Ones had marked Earth with their highest warning level, but by then it would be too late. The stage was set. The pieces were in motion, and humanity was about to teach the galaxy a lesson about underestimating a species that had evolved on a world where every day was a fight for survival. The sleek Imperial shuttle glided smoothly into the docking bay of the newly constructed space station. Named Unity Point, the station hung in space exactly halfway between Earth's moon and the assembled Imperial fleet. Its pristine white corridors and meeting chambers represented the pinnacle of Imperial engineering, designed to impress and intimidate primitive species. Ambassador Song adjusted his ceremonial robes as the shuttle's ramp descended. His golden sash marked him as one of the Empire's most experienced diplomats, having overseen the integration of dozens of civilizations into the Imperial fold. This meeting would be no different, he thought confidently. The human delegation was already waiting in the grand meeting chamber. Admiral James Chen stood at the head of the Earth representatives, his bearing military but his expression carefully neutral. The rest of the human delegation consisted of various officials from Earth's major nations, each chosen for their diplomatic experience. Song studied them carefully as he entered. Their clothing was simpler than Imperial fashion, their technology noticeably less advanced. Yet something about their calm demeanor struck him as unusual. Most primitive species showed at least some awe when first boarding an Imperial installation. "Welcome to Unity Point," Song began, his translator converting his words into Earth's major languages. "The Empire is pleased to initiate formal contact with your species." Chen nodded politely. "Earth thanks you for this opportunity for dialogue between our civilizations." Song gestured to the elaborate holographic displays showing the Empire's vast territory. "As you can see, the Imperial realm spans much of the known galaxy. We bring peace, order, and technological advancement to all species under our protection." The human delegates examined the displays with interest, but Song noticed they were taking detailed notes and measurements. Not the behavior he expected from a primitive civilization. "Your species shows great promise," Song continued, moving to the key point of the meeting. "The Empire offers you protection and guidance. Under our leadership, Earth will advance centuries within decades." The translator conveyed his words with perfect clarity. Song waited for the expected response: gratitude, perhaps even relief at being offered Imperial protection. Instead, Admiral Chen's expression remained unchanged. "We appreciate the Empire's generous offer," Chen replied diplomatically. "However, Earth prefers to establish equal partnerships rather than protection arrangements. We would be happy to discuss trade agreements and cultural exchange programs between equals." The Imperial delegates exchanged confused looks. This wasn't how these meetings usually went. Song felt his carefully prepared script slipping away. "Perhaps you don't understand," Song said, allowing a note of condescension to enter his voice. "The Empire's protection is not typically offered to species at your technological level. This is a great honor." Chen smiled slightly. "We understand perfectly, Ambassador, and we are honored by the offer. But humanity has its own path to follow." That's when the station's sensors began blaring unexpected alerts. Song's aide rushed forward with a data pad, his face pale. "Ambassador," the aide whispered urgently, "we're detecting multiple vessels surrounding the station. They're using some kind of cloaking technology similar to our own, but more advanced. We didn't know humans had this capability." Song's confidence faltered as he looked at the sensor readings. At least 20 ships, all of human design, but incorporating technologies the Empire had thought impossible for Earth to possess. They had been there the entire time, invisible to Imperial sensors until now. Admiral Chen's smile hadn't changed. "We hope this small demonstration helps explain our position, Ambassador. Earth comes to this table as equals, not as subjects seeking protection." The Imperial delegation sat in stunned silence. Their careful plans, their rehearsed speeches about Imperial benevolence, none of it had prepared them for this. These humans hadn't just matched some Imperial technology. They'd improved upon it. How? Song found himself asking. "Your civilization barely reaches your moon. That's what we allowed you to see," Chen replied calmly. "Humanity has learned through long experience that it's sometimes wise to keep certain capabilities private. We mean no offense, but we've spent our history preparing for meetings exactly like this one." As if to emphasize his point, the human ships briefly dropped their cloaking fields, revealing designs that somehow merged Earth's practical engineering with advanced technologies the Empire had thought were their exclusive domain. Song realized with growing unease that this diplomatic mission had just become something entirely different. They hadn't come to guide a primitive species. They'd walked into a meeting with an equal power that had been watching and learning from them all along. The game had changed, and the Empire wasn't prepared for the new rules. Lieutenant Yoon's fingers moved rapidly across the glowing control panel as new alerts flooded the tactical display. The bridge of the Imperial flagship Eternal Dawn hummed with tense energy as officers rushed between stations, their usual calm efficiency replaced by growing concern. "Status report," Admiral Han commanded, his voice steady despite the chaos unfolding on the tactical screens before them. "Sir, the human fleet has emerged from multiple vectors," Yoon reported, her eyes fixed on the data streams. "They're using modified versions of our own shield technology, but the energy signatures are different, more efficient." The main display showed Imperial warships exchanging fire with human vessels across a vast section of space. The humans had scattered their forces into small, highly mobile groups that struck rapidly and vanished before the Empire's superior numbers could respond effectively. "Impossible," Captain Park muttered, watching as another Imperial cruiser reported shield failures. "Their weapons, they're bypassing our defensive screens somehow." Yoon's screens flashed with new warnings. "They've adapted their weapons to match our shield frequencies." "No, they're actually predicting our frequency changes before we make them." Admiral Han stood silent, watching the battle unfold. The Empire's response fleet, sent to teach the humans a lesson about defying Imperial authority, now found itself in an unprecedented situation. They weren't losing to superior numbers or overwhelming firepower. They were being outmaneuvered by an enemy that seemed to know their tactics better than they did themselves. 7th Division reports heavy damage, Yoon announced. "The humans are using some kind of concentrated energy weapon we've never seen before. It passes right through our strongest shields like they're not even there." On the main screen, a human vessel no larger than an Imperial scout ship executed a series of maneuvers that should have been impossible, slipping through the gaps in Imperial formation as if they'd trained against these very tactics. "They're not fighting like primitives," Park said, finally voicing what everyone on the bridge was thinking. "Look at their attack patterns, the way they coordinate. They're fighting like they've been preparing for this their entire history." A massive explosion lit up the tactical display as one of the Empire's newest battleships lost containment of its reactor core. The human ships had somehow identified and targeted a structural weakness that even Imperial engineers hadn't considered significant. "They're not just copying our technology," Yoon observed, her voice tight with professional concern. "They're improving it, adapting it in ways we never thought to try. Every time we adjust our tactics, they've already prepared a counter-strategy." Admiral Han watched as another group of human ships emerged from behind Earth's moon, using the natural body's gravitational field to enhance their weapons' effectiveness, a technique that had never occurred to Imperial tacticians. "Send the signal," Han ordered finally. "All ships, tactical withdrawal." Regroup at Rally Point Beta. The bridge fell silent. In 10,000 years of Imperial expansion, no fleet commander had ever ordered a retreat from a primitive species. But these humans, they were something else entirely. "Sir," Yoon reported, her voice low, "the humans aren't pursuing. They're maintaining defensive positions around their planet." "Of course they are," Han replied grimly. "They've made their point. They knew exactly how far to push us without forcing us into a position where we have to escalate further." As the Imperial fleet began its withdrawal, the tactical displays showed the human ships resuming their patrol patterns with practiced precision. They hadn't won through brute force or superior numbers. They had simply understood Imperial tactics so well that they could counter each move before it was made. How did they do it? Park wondered aloud. How did they prepare so thoroughly for our specific technologies and tactics? Han watched the last images of Earth growing smaller on the viewing screen. "They did what humans apparently do best, Captain. They watched, they learned, and they adapted. While we saw primitives barely reaching their moon, they were studying our every move and preparing for exactly this moment." The Empire had not just failed to subjugate Earth, they had discovered a species that had turned their own technological superiority against them. As the fleet retreated to safe distance, Han couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning of what humanity would teach them about the dangers of underestimating a young species. Behind them, Earth continued its quiet orbit around its sun, but now the galaxy knew it was anything but the primitive world they had assumed it to be. The Grand Council chambers of the Imperial capital stretched high above, their ancient walls adorned with symbols of power gathered from 1,000 worlds. Today, those symbols seemed to mock the assembled council members as they faced an unprecedented crisis. Researcher Kim stood at the center of the chamber, surrounded by the highest-ranking members of the Imperial government. Her simple research uniform stood in stark contrast to their elaborate ceremonial robes, but today no one questioned her right to speak. "Honorable council members," Kim began, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "I've completed my analysis of the Ancient One's warnings about Earth. What I've discovered changes everything we thought we knew about human capabilities." The head counselor leaned forward on his elevated platform. "Explain, researcher, why did the Ancient Ones mark Earth with their highest warning level?" Kim activated the chamber's holographic system, displaying ancient text and data streams around her. "We misunderstood the warning completely. The Ancient Ones didn't mark Earth as dangerous because humans were powerful. They marked it because of how humans think, how they learn, how they adapt." The chamber filled with murmurs as Kim projected images of human history. "Look at their development pattern. Other species advance in a linear fashion, building upon previous discoveries. Humans don't just advance. They leap forward, sideways, finding solutions no other species would consider." She showed footage from Earth's conflicts, centuries of warfare and innovation compressed into minutes. In just 3 centuries, they went from simple mechanical devices to quantum computing. But it's not just the speed, it's how they do it. "Every species faces challenges," one council member interrupted. "What makes humans different?" Kim nodded, expecting this question. "Other species overcome challenges by following established patterns. Humans transform challenges into advantages. When faced with superior technology, they don't just copy it, they reimagine it completely." A holographic display showed how humans had taken Imperial shield technology and modified it in ways the Empire's engineers had never considered. "They think differently than any species we've encountered. Where we see limits, they see possibilities." The council chambers erupted in heated debate. The Empire had built itself on technological superiority and overwhelming force. The idea of a species that could turn those very advantages against them challenged the foundation of Imperial strategy. "There's more," Kim continued, her voice cutting through the chaos. "The Ancient One's records show they encountered 3 other species with similar traits. In each case, attempting to control or subjugate them led to disaster. These species didn't just fight back. They absorbed and improved upon everything used against them. She displayed a final set of data, showing human adaptation rates compared to other known species. The line representing human development didn't follow any predictable pattern. It spiked and twisted, finding new paths forward where none should have existed. The Ancient Ones didn't fear human technology or human weapons, Kim explained. They feared human potential. Every challenge we present them becomes a lesson they learn from. Every technology we display becomes a tool they improve upon. The head counselor raised his hand for silence. What are you suggesting, researcher? That we cannot defeat them? I'm suggesting that trying to defeat them would be missing the point entirely, Kim replied. The more we try to dominate them, the stronger they become. The Ancient Ones understood this. That's why they left them alone. Not out of fear, but out of wisdom. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. The Empire had encountered thousands of species, but always as the superior force, the advanced civilization bringing order to the galaxy. Now they face something entirely different. A young species that could turn every advantage against them, that grew stronger from every challenge. There's one more thing, Kim added softly. The Ancient One's final note about Earth. Beware the species that learns from defeat, for they will transform your greatest strengths into their own. As the council debated their next move, Kim watched the holographic display of Earth rotating slowly above them. She understood now why the Ancient Ones had marked this seemingly ordinary planet with their highest warning. It wasn't the humans' current capabilities that made them dangerous. It was their endless capacity to adapt, to improve, to transform every obstacle into an opportunity. The Empire would have to change its entire approach to dealing with humanity. The question was whether they could adapt quickly enough, or if they would learn the same hard lesson that had led the Ancient Ones to leave their warning so many millennia ago. The fate of the Empire now hung on their ability to understand a simple truth. You cannot defeat a species that grows stronger from every attempt to defeat them. Ambassador Song's shuttle approached the renamed Unity Station, the same facility where his first disastrous meeting with humanity had taken place. Now the station displayed both Imperial and Earth flags, a small but significant change that reflected the shifting balance of power. Inside the station's main conference room, Song adjusted his now simple diplomatic robes. Gone were the golden sashes and symbols of imperial superiority. Today's meeting required humility, something the Empire had rarely needed to display in its long history. Admiral Chen waited at the conference table, looking exactly as he had during their first meeting. But this time, Song viewed him with new eyes. The simple military uniform no longer seemed primitive. It spoke of practical efficiency, of a species that valued function over appearance. Admiral Chen, Song began, his translator active but unnecessary. He had learned Earth's major languages in preparation for this meeting. Thank you for agreeing to these talks. Chen nodded, his expression neutral but attentive. The people of Earth are always willing to engage in meaningful dialogue, Ambassador. Song took his seat, noting how the humans had arranged the room with perfect symmetry. Neither side elevated or advantaged over the other, a subtle but clear message about their expectations. I must begin with an admission, Song said, choosing his words carefully. We underestimated humanity. The Empire has never encountered a species quite like yours. Few have, Chen replied simply. Around the conference table, other human representatives maintained the same calm demeanor that had so confused Song during their first meeting. Though I suspect you understand why now. Song thought of the reports he'd received, the battles where human ingenuity had transformed imperial technology in ways their engineers had thought impossible. Your ability to adapt, to improve upon existing technology, it's unprecedented. Not unprecedented, one of the human scientists corrected politely. Just unexpected. We've always done this, taken existing ideas and reimagined them. It's part of who we are. That's why I'm here, Song continued. The Empire proposes an immediate ceasefire and the beginning of diplomatic negotiations. We seek to establish peaceful relations with Earth. Chen shared a look with his colleagues before responding. We're not interested in conquest, Ambassador. We never were. What we're interested in is cooperation, but it must be on equal terms. The words echoed their first meeting, but now Song understood their full meaning. Humanity hadn't been boasting or bluffing. They had simply stated a truth the Empire hadn't been ready to hear. The Empire has never had an equal partnership with a younger species, Song admitted. We've always been the advanced civilization, bringing progress to others. Perhaps that's why you've stopped advancing in many ways, another human delegate suggested. When you're always the teacher, you forget how to learn. Song considered this. The Empire had indeed grown comfortable in its role as the galaxy's most advanced civilization. They had stopped looking for new ways to solve problems because their existing solutions had always been sufficient. What exactly are you proposing? Song asked. Chen activated a holographic display showing joint human-imperial projects. True cooperation. We share our different approaches to problems. We learn from each other. Humanity gains access to the galaxy, and the Empire gains new perspectives on technologies they've taken for granted. The proposals were detailed, clearly prepared long before this meeting. The humans had been ready for this moment even before the first shot was fired. Your species continues to surprise us, Song said, reviewing the proposals. Even now, in a position of strength, you seek cooperation rather than dominance. That's because we understand something your empire seems to have forgotten, Chen replied. True strength isn't about dominating others. It's about adapting, growing, and learning together. As Song read through the proposed terms, he realized humanity wasn't just offering peace. They were offering the Empire a chance to rediscover its own capacity for growth and innovation. I believe, Song said finally, that the Empire has much to learn from humanity. We accept your proposal for equal partnership. Chen smiled, the first genuine smile Song had seen from him. Then let's begin working together, Ambassador. We have a galaxy of possibilities to explore. As the meeting continued, Song couldn't help but appreciate the irony. The Empire had come to teach humanity about the galaxy, but instead, humanity was teaching the Empire how to see the galaxy with new eyes. The reckoning they had feared had turned into an opportunity, not for conquest or submission, but for genuine growth and cooperation between civilizations. The massive observation deck of Earth's Galactic Cooperation Center offered a breathtaking view of humanity's homeworld. Admiral Han stood at the window, watching vessels from across the galaxy move gracefully through space. Each ship represented a different civilization, their unique designs telling stories of their origins and cultures. 5 years had passed since the Empire's failed attempt to subjugate Earth. Now the same space that had once hosted confrontation buzzed with peaceful activity. Trading vessels, diplomatic shuttles, and research ships from 100 worlds moved in carefully coordinated patterns. Captain Park joined Han at the window, his uniform now bearing both Imperial and Earth insignia, a small detail that represented enormous change. It's remarkable how much has changed in such a short time, Park said, gesturing to a human vessel escorting an Imperial science ship. Who would have thought our greatest diplomatic failure would lead to the Empire's greatest transformation? Han watched as teams of human and Imperial engineers worked together on a new space station design. The humans' creative approaches combined with Imperial technical expertise had produced innovations neither civilization could have achieved alone. The ancient warnings weren't about running from humanity, Han replied thoughtfully. They were about running from our own arrogance. We were so convinced of our superiority that we couldn't see the opportunity in front of us. Below them, the center's main concourse buzzed with activity. Delegates from across the galaxy moved between meeting rooms and research laboratories. Humans worked alongside former Imperial rivals, each bringing their own strengths to shared challenges. Look there, Park pointed to a group of young Imperial officers learning from human instructors. Our military academy now includes human tactical thinking in its core curriculum. Their ability to adapt and improvise has transformed our entire approach to problem solving. Han nodded, remembering his initial dismissal of the warnings about Earth. The humans never needed to defeat us. They showed us a better way to exist in the galaxy. Through another window, they could see Earth's newest space fleet. The vessels combined Imperial technology with human innovation, creating ships more advanced than anything either civilization had previously developed. But instead of weapons, these ships carried scientific equipment and diplomatic missions. The ancient ones were wiser than we knew, Han mused. Their warning about Earth wasn't meant to protect us from humanity. It was meant to protect us from ourselves, from our own inability to see beyond our assumptions. The station's communication system carried fragments of conversations in dozens of languages. Human children learned Imperial history, while young Imperial citizens studied Earth's cultures. The exchange of knowledge flowed freely in both directions. Remember how we once thought of humans as primitives? Park asked with a slight smile. Now our best scientists wait months for a chance to study at Earth's research institutes. Han watched as a group of human and Imperial engineers unveiled their latest joint project, a new form of faster-than-light travel that combined human theoretical insights with Imperial technical expertise. The cheers and congratulations crossed all species barriers. The Empire spent millennia believing that strength came from imposing our will on others, Han said. The humans taught us that true strength lies in adaptation and cooperation. Every civilization brings something unique to the galaxy. We just had to learn to listen. Through the observation window, Earth continued its eternal dance around its sun. The same planet Han had once dismissed as unremarkable now stood as a symbol of a new way forward, not just for humanity or the Empire, but for all spacefaring civilizations. A new generation was growing up in this transformed galaxy. Young humans and Imperials who would never know the old rivalries, who would see cooperation and adaptation as natural as breathing. Perhaps that was humanity's greatest gift to us, Han said finally. Not their technology or their tactical brilliance, but their vision of what the galaxy could become when we worked together. As they watched ships from across the galaxy continue their peaceful journeys, both men understood that they had witnessed more than just the rise of a new power. They had seen the birth of a new way of thinking about civilization itself, one that valued growth over dominance, adaptation over control, and cooperation over conquest. The ancient warnings about Earth had been right, but for reasons the Empire had never imagined. Humanity hadn't changed the galaxy through force or fear, but through the simple, powerful idea that every civilization had something to teach and something to learn. The end.